that they felt watching the events of the past week. And I think that it's been traumatic in many ways for our nation and for our state. And I would just say, leading off, that I really consider myself honored and privileged to be able to have this appointment, to be able to serve in public office. And I think it's such a privilege that we get to serve in public office. I think it's a privilege that we get to work with children to help inspire the paths that our kids take. And hopefully, when we're at our best, when our schools are at our best, and our communities are at our best, we're inspiring that path to be one of uh, critical discourse, one of being able to accept that we have differences of opinion, but that we can work through them peacefully, and that our ability to lead does not depend on party or ideology or skin color or race or language or disability, but that we're really in this to work together for the betterment of humanity. I think that's what teachers have the amazing privilege and honor to do in the classroom every day. And so I just wanted to start off by reflecting on a week where it, the ability to be in the education field, where we bring together people of all backgrounds and political ideologies and races, and do so in a way where we try to serve everyone and set everyone on a path for success is it's never been more important, and it's never been I think kind of more salient in this moment to sit back and realize the position that we enjoy. So thank you for all that each of you do to try to live that ethos in your classrooms. And the public education department, we are a department for everybody, and we want to we'll always do our best to try to reflect that.
Thank you, Secretary. Appreciate those words. Dr. Warniment?
I think we can just open up to questions, because I really like to honor the teacher voices in the room. So
thank you. Appreciate that. So I'll probably just go one to Secretary, and if you need to pass it off to each other, that's fine too. But so we'll start with the Secretary, and then we'll go to Dr. Warniment. And I kind of know your wheelhouses, but then Kata, I have some of Kata's wheelhouse here too. So I'll just throw them at y'all, and you can figure out how to work your way through them. So one question comes to us from Farmington, and it's about FFCRA that has expired. And this person is very concerned for women that they're working with that are pregnant right now and are very fearful of returning to work. And they've been told that FFCRA has expired, and they want to know, what are we doing to protect our employees, and especially our employees that are, doing the greatest work of all, which is, bringing children into the world. So whoever wants to take that, I think Dr. Stewart.
Yeah, I'll jump into this one, and it is true that did expire in the new year. The kind of good news, I'll call it kind of good news, is that there's nothing preventing the extension of those benefits. It's just no longer mandated. So we all still, every HR department and employer still does have the ability to continue offering those benefits. It now comes down to a local decision. I would say that the broader issue of employees dealing with leave issues based on COVID, based on the pandemic, has been something that Mary has really been very much an advocate for, a champion for. We've been in discussions about how we support workers during this time. And so we've earmarked some funds specifically for thinking about how we protect workers who might have COVID-related leave issues. And we're going to be working together. I think we even have a meeting scheduled tomorrow, if I recall correctly, to continue thinking about that. So it's certainly something that's very much on the minds of the state. Again, I think we'll do the best we can with the resources that we have to try to support employees who are impacted with these various leave issues. But I would say a couple of things. One is making sure your local board members know how important these items are for you. And then really importantly, we have a new federal administration that's going to be coming in. So we need to keep the advocacy going with the new federal administration about how important these protections are, and continuing to reach out to your congressional delegation to make sure that we're in the next COVID relief package, continuing to try to put this at the forefront.
Thank you, Secretary. Yes, and I believe President-elect Biden is speaking this evening on putting forth his first 100-day plan. So I know we're all interested to see what is in there. This question is for Dr. Warniment. And again, I think this is more, well, I don't know if special ed, if that's a kata thing, I think it is, but so I can continue to be very concerned about students also, and the impact of COVID on them. And I know almost every time we speak, I bring up that I'm concerned that the vaccine hasn't been tested for people under 16, and that we really don't know the long-term effects of the virus on kids. And but this question comes from a long dedicated, long-serving special education teacher. And that is, what accommodations will be provided for students who have had COVID-19 and who are now experiencing side effects? And will districts need to write 504 plans for these students?
Yeah, thank you, Mary. Thank you for the question from the teacher who asked that. This is a great question. So definitely, I think a 504 is a plausible solution. Thinking about it in terms of, the range of illness that impacts all of us, and students in particular, whether it's the common cold or flu, or you might have chickenpox. And so what's the impact of chickenpox in your school performance, and what's reasonable as an educator to ask and or expect for the student in that situation, versus something that's pretty long-term, like mononucleosis. And so students can get a 504, right? If you have mono, if you're out for a long extended period of time. So I think it's definitely appropriate in some cases. And I think range of accommodations can include, everything from amended work, or support systems, an individual type plan, right? That really is accounting for specific things that that you're asking for the student to do. Or I think that, the one thing that you want to be careful of is that the student is still doing work on grade level. So that's the only thing that I would say, but it's definitely appropriate.
Okay, and I know my next question should be for Dr. Stewart, but I'm going to do an evaluation question because one of my peers for a long time is hearing that colleagues are very frustrated about teacher evaluation, that they know it's been kind of put on hold. I have an explanation in my newsletter that's going out today, how I even use your words that we're test driving it this year, and that really the full rollout will be next year. But I hear what you all say to superintendents, but then I hear what my people tell me is happening in their district, and this I hear all the time, and that is, I don't know if it's just excitement or over too much exuberance, but there's just a lot of evaluation over and beyond what may be appropriate for this setting, and especially with a new tool. And I know people feel like there are new components and they haven't all been trained, and there is a lot of frustration. So could you just address evaluation this year and what it looks like to you?
Of course, Mary, thanks. So sort of two parts to this answer. First is more immediate, that I really recognize that, and there's a few things that we're doing to really support and alleviate teachers with this pressure. The first is something that actually just went out today, so it's sort of new, and it's that we are removing any deadlines whatsoever. So there should be no deadlines to any of this process. Principals aren't required to submit, teachers aren't required to submit an observation per certain deadline. I think this is really important because there's enormous flexibility in that space, in terms of teachers' ability to kind of have some space to think about when they, the relationship that you have with your administrator and how you choose to be evaluated, and asking for that support in a much more feasible way. So no deadlines for the remainder of the year. The other piece about this that's flexible is that we aren't turning out any summative reports. There's no reports that will happen at the end of the year. So it's really just a process of experiencing the pieces of this new evaluation system. Things like, this is our PDP and how it probably should be connected. This is what an observation would look like and or feel like, although this year is a little bit wacko because it's remote, right? So it's a chance to kind of move through it with extreme flexibility and knowing there's not going to be a report at the end of the year. I think that's real important to say to you, because while we as a public education department may gather data, it's not at all going to be in any form or fashion echoed back at you as a way that really is an evaluation, to be honest, right? So we're kind of using this term evaluation, but it's not necessarily going to be there. It's simply experiencing a new system with different parts that will help support you. So that kind of gets to the second part of this answer, and that's what we're attempting to do with this new system is actually a complete 180 of what it is, and had the privilege of Mary supporting us in this process of really thinking through what a supportive evaluation system would be. And I think that the lessons that we learned from this year, including what worked and what didn't, will really help us next year as we move to kind of formalize something. So I hope that helps.
And I know how wound up we get about evaluation and Dr. Warnament can tell you this, and it's a little painful for me to reflect back, but I cried one day when we had the big evaluation meeting, and it was about actionable feedback during walkthroughs, because I had been listening to you all too much, and just how that feedback had been not used correctly, because really evaluation is supposed to be to help us be better, and to also to acknowledge the work that we're doing, and everybody in life should have some type of an evaluation, but I know that they don't always turn out that way. So it is like a super important topic though, and we will continue. This meeting tonight was going to be all about evaluation, but we changed it up because we just thought there are too many other things of such great importance that we needed to spend time on that. So I'm going to go back with a tough question. Dr. Warnament, did you have something else you wanted to add?
I would say two things. Like it's important that we are here because we also hear from you, and I think that what I'm taking back from this is maybe some work around telling the principals or working with the principals a little bit to let off some pressure. So that I will take back and work with my staff in terms of maybe some of the coaching, because we actually have set up a community of practice with administrators in Canvas right now to talk them through what this system is and how it becomes a really supportive system instead of a traditional evaluation system, as you would concern. So maybe some of the work that we do there is towards support. Thanks.
Thank you. And I think that is, you keyed right in on what the issue is they feel more punitive and not helpful. And therein lies the issue. So this question, this next question is for Dr. Stewart, and it really comes from around the state. And we had multiple people ask it in different ways. And so the question itself is, will the vaccine be administered to all teachers who want it before we return to in-person learning? So that's a piece of it. Other pieces were, are you going to force people to take the vaccination? That's another piece. And So along those lines, so just a lot of questions, and we just put out today too, for your information, the national president of AFT and NEA did a webinar about the vaccination and why we're encouraging educators to take it. And so I want you to know that we've already started in our campaign to try to start talking to educators about the vaccination and that type of thing. So over to you, Dr.
Thanks. I know this is a big hot topic, and first of all, the answer around are there mandates around the vaccine? Can you be forced? We don't have any mandates around the vaccine, so there is no. You're not forced to take it. Districts aren't. There's no requirement that you need to take it. So you have that choice. We certainly encourage everyone to get vaccinated, but that will be a personal choice. In terms of the other question, which trying to see it, can you remind me of the other question again, Mary?
That's the first time you've ever not remembered like all 5 parts of something. It is anytime I say, so there's 2 things. That's a guarantee that I'm not going to remember what the second one is, but it is, will the vaccine be administered to all teachers who want it before returning to in-person learning?
Got it. Thank you. So on this front, we did work, and thanks again for the advocacy of NEA and others on prioritizing educators and school staff for priority of the vaccine. So we were able to do that. Educators are in the 1B category. We're putting shots in the arms of people in the 1B category now. So we're excited that is there. We know even within that group that many of those who are high risk, have been in 1A, but even those who live with high risk individuals, we've been working with DOH to prioritize even within the 1B group to make sure that those school staff are able to get their vaccinations as well. So that priority, we're excited that's there, and we highly encourage everyone to go in and register for the vaccine so that as soon as it's available in your area, you can go and get that vaccine right away. I think the other piece that's a bit of an unknown, 2 unknowns, I'll say on this part, is around the supply. So a lot of the supply of the vaccine is out of our hands. We're hopeful that we get as much as we can possibly distribute quickly, but much depends on the supply chain and when we get things in. So that's one variable that applies to this question. I think the other variable is what exactly is the date in which we expand in-person learning eligibility. I remain cautiously optimistic that we're seeing a light at the end of the tunnel where we're going to be able to welcome more kids back. And this has been a long process, as all of you know, from going to not really knowing anything about this virus and having all sorts of very conflicting data and no processes in place to where we are now. And it's been the work of the last 9 months, establishing all of our COVID safe practices, establishing a rapid response system, setting up the watch list system. We have our environment department going down into sewers, putting wastewater testing programs into sewers, getting surveillance testing programs, and even more convenient at home surveillance testing programs up and running, along with the data systems to be able to track that and see where we are. It's been putting forward what we think are the most robust indoor air quality standards in the country in place, and getting the resources and regulations out to put those into place. And all of the things that we've done leading up, I think are positioning us to have much safer environments to bring students back into. And then combining that with what we're seeing in schools with regard to our own rapid response data and the state and international data. So our state data so far is showing that a lot these practices and the cautious approach that we've taken have really paid off, that we haven't seen big outbreaks that can be attributed to schools generally. that the COVID safe practices in the hybrid environment and the limitations on number of people really have been effective. And I think that tracks pretty well with the international and national data that we're seeing around the impact of schools on the virus. So that was a mouthful to say that I'm cautiously optimistic that we're going to see some light at the end of the tunnel and be able to expand in-person eligibility, but we haven't set a date for that yet, and we're still working with our health officials and with the governor's office on exactly what that date will be. So between the variable of how much supply of the vaccine we'll get and what the eventual date that we set is, those two things will in large part determine the answer to that question. I do think that we'll get a lot of teachers and school staff vaccinated here in the now through the immediate future. I can't give a guarantee around what percentage of the school staff that vaccine will have been administered to when the ultimate date comes down. So that's still a to be determined.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Stewart. So now we're going to come back to the questions in the chat in a minute, but I am going to give this question to Dr. Warnament, this is a question about instruction and testing. Given the fact that some of our students and their families are struggling, some parents are unemployed, going through this difficult time, how is testing going to truly give the PED any kind of true data when the obstacles some of our kids and families are facing with the obstacles? Sorry, I can't even read. It's not equitable to all of our students given our current situation. And this educator, and I believe this is from the Northwest region of our state, also would like to know, or maybe this one's from Cuesta. I think it's from Cuesta. Do you think this is fair? And if you just speak to testing and evaluation, please, Dr. Warnament.
Sure. Thanks, Mary. And thanks to the educator who asked this. We have some news today. I made an announcement at the superintendent phone call, or Zoom call, I should say, this morning, that we are going to pursue a waiver as a state to pause administration of all of the high stakes or large scale summative assessments for this year. So we will be, again, pursuing a waiver for those assessments. To that end, there are a lot of the reasons that we're citing for this waiver are a lot in line with what that educator is saying. The data would be invalid for a number of reasons. We want to prioritize the socio-emotional well-being and health of our students and our families and our teachers. And when we do return to in-person education or in-person instructional models, we want to prioritize instruction, right? And not testing. So we're excited to do that. I think it's in line with the core values of myself and the secretary. We are moving forward with that. That being said, we're also, it's incumbent upon us, and it's in state statute really. So we are held to do this. It's incumbent upon us to sort of have a landscape analysis of where are our students and how do we do that in the most practical way, or in the way that sort of honors students and teachers in this whole space. So if it's in state statute, it's not just a federal law, it's actually state law that is that says the public education department is required to do this, and our districts and our charter schools are required to do this. We're going to do sort of a two-pronged approach where we will also ask for districts and charter schools that are would like to volunteer to do some assessments and or testing these I'm not going to call them high stakes because we would remove any of the high stakes components from them, including participation rates and or impact on accountability, anything like that. But ask if you'd like to volunteer to just take the test. And then in addition to that, it would be a choice of the individual student and family level. So really, really based in choice. But that would give us kind of an idea of just taking a sampling to be able to see where students might be, while also honoring, right, that this is not going to be our priority and it should be an individual choice right now. Particularly concerned with issues of connectivity from some of our students have had to deal with over the past 6 or so months, so, or more. But that's a short answer.
Okay, thank you. And yeah, so I think what ends up happening is the way things are presented again to many staff members, and is that this is a mandate from the state and we're absolutely going to do it. And I know that a lot of times that is not true, that it's not a mandate. And for whatever reason, the information that's being put out is not reaching the educator. So you heard it from Dr. Warnament, where they are right now today. They've decided to put in for a waiver. I just heard on my previous call with our president, Becky Pringle. She just got out of a meeting with Dr. Miguel Cardona, and he still hasn't committed whether he's going to give waivers or not, because that is a question that people across the nation are asking. But as we get more information on that, we will certainly update you about it. So thank you very much.
Mary, one thing I'd like to just say, put on your radar, all the educators and for families. One of the things that we have to do in applying for a waiver for the tests at the federal level is send out a survey to community members for input. So please be on the lookout for that when we send it out, because it will be really important for you all to give input into the reasoning and or support for us in applying for this waiver. So.
Thank you. So I'm going to go to the chat now, because there is a question here, and it's about collaborating with our native tribes. So, and I know yesterday I was in a meeting with Dr. Stewart, and he had to get out of the meeting, and it was with the governor also, because he had another meeting with the tribal leaders. So, so the full question is, how is returning to safe measures for learning being looked at, and collaborating with Native American tribes in our state on reservations and tribal lands? So I'll just put that out there, if that's for Dr. Warnerman or Dr. Stewart, I think.
I can jump in first, and Gwen, please feel free to add on anything I miss. So I would take this from a couple of different lenses, and one of them is related to the public health orders that I know Navajo Nation has put out a public health order, and some of the other pueblos and tribes have put out public health orders as well, and that is specific to their lands and some of the extreme increase in cases that they've seen in their communities. And so we've tried to be very clear with districts around respecting tribal sovereignty during this time, and making sure that districts who have schools that are on lands, or who have many students who come off of a reservation and into the schools, that there is collaboration there, and that that we are respecting the public health orders that get put out. And so we've had a number of conversations with Navajo Nation on this, as well as the All Pueblo Council of Governors as well, to try to make sure that we're aligned there. And then in addition, we meet with the tribal education directors pretty regularly to talk through all of the different procedures that we have. So that includes looping them in with our Engage New Mexico work. And it's also included providing all of the guidance and CSPs that we've developed. And then also making available all of the tools that we have through rapid response. We coordinate pretty closely with DOH and CYFD on all matters, and how anything that we put out in terms of safety that we're looping tribes in on it. We have more to do and can do a better job in those coordinations. And I think sometimes there's an ongoing struggle between leadership at the district level and at the tribal level around certain ways of operating that we always continue to work through, help mediate where we can. But we're trying to be as communicative as we can. And like Mary said, we just had a 4-hour meeting yesterday with the tribal governors. That was more focused on policy, strategic, Yazi Martinez, but the Indian Affairs Department has hosted a number of virtual tribal summits as well for agencies across the government to talk about both COVID response and legislative sessions. So that includes Department of Health and CYFD and other agencies that are all talking COVID response and safety. So those are some of the big things that we have going right now. And I hope that answers the question, but let me know if there are other follow-ups to it.
Thank you. I believe that was from an educator that may be newer to some of our NEA New Mexico meetings. And I want to let this educator know that NEA New Mexico is also working extremely closely with Transform Education New Mexico and the Center for Law and Poverty to address, and the Tribal Ed Alliance, which are groups. There's about 80 partner groups that work together to really try to look at the best practices, working with the tribes, and how we can facilitate the learning of all our students, especially our Native children. So thank you for the question. I'm gonna go to another question, and this is from Santa Fe, and this question is, can PED put out a survey? And I'm just going to say, Grace, NEA New Mexico put out a survey today. And I told the PED and the governor that when we get the responses, we're going to share it with the PED, and we're going to show them what you all are saying. So it's really important that you get that survey out to all your unit, because we really do want to know what our members are saying about air quality, about PPE, yes, there's concerns that the districts present themselves in a way that is not really accurate to what is actually going on. And so this question is to ask you if you would put out a survey. And I would just like to ask if we can see how many responses we get to ours, and if we don't get the information we need, then maybe we can try back with the PED. So I kind of took that question. I don't know if you'd like to respond to that, Secretary.
Yeah, and Mary, just to clarify, is that a request for PED to run a survey on this, or for local districts to run a survey? I wasn't, I don't think I was clear.
Yeah, it was asking PED, but to put out a survey to all employees. And maybe we can do that too in the interest of getting information. But we did put out a survey. It's like a 20-question survey that covers many of those topics. So we're going to see how that is. We are planning to share that information with the public ed department and with the governor's office. So really encourage your members to take the survey. So I guess we can circle back and see if we need more information after we get our survey results back. So thank you for the question, Grace, Mayor of Santa Fe. Okay, so let's go to.
And thanks. I would just say really. Sorry, I was just going to say really quickly that we're excited. We'll be excited to see those survey results as well, and we're certainly trying to put as many resources as we can to working with districts to make sure that the right conditions are in place and taking the actions that we need to when they're not, including our anonymous portal. So we've gotten a lot of information in from our anonymous portal that has helped us do follow-ups where necessary. So would just encourage people to continue to utilize that as a tool to get us information.
Yes, thank you. This is speaking to workload. So upon reopening the school, Secretary Stewart, have you given any thought to the multitasking some teachers will be faced with, having both students virtually at home all while having to teach those students in the classroom, not to mention the multiple tech devices teachers will need to be successful using as a pandemic teacher. So I think you probably both could respond to that. So I'll turn it over.
Gwen, do you want to start, or do you want me to jump in first?
Go ahead and start.
Okay. So for most of the pandemic, I've actually had a weekly focus group with teachers from around the state to talk through what's happening in their districts and their schools and how that's been working and workload. And I think one of the things I've heard pretty consistently is teachers are really working incredibly hard, harder than ever during the pandemic. I've heard it's tough to you don't really know where the lines are between home and school anymore, especially when you're working from home. People are reaching out um, at all hours, and then wanting quick responses and so on. So I've definitely heard many teachers who have expressed that. I've heard many teachers who, when they're in the hybrid model, have said, it's great to be back and have my kids back in front of me. It's really tough to plan for a lesson that for those who do a hybrid model where you have simultaneous online and in person, it's tough to plan those lessons. You have to be very creative to make sure you can be inclusive of both modalities, and that's been challenging. And then there's others who have a hybrid model where it's asynchronous, where you're only teaching the kids in front of you, and then the kids who are at home are working on something asynchronously, and there are challenges there as well, where you're planning two different lessons in that span and trying to make that work. So I think it's definitely been very consistent in the different models that operating in this environment has presented new challenges. I've been really encouraged by many of the teachers who have talked to me about the very creative ways that they've put systems in place to help deal with that. But I think that not to sugarcoat it at all, it's more challenging to operate in this pandemic environment with these different models than it was when we're doing the things that we were used to. And I certainly don't have a magic bullet that I can just point to and say, do this, and we won't have to have those challenges. But I do think that through some of the work that Dr. Pereira Warnament has led and others around professional development, I think the new infusion of resources that we're going to have about $400 million that go to districts for use over the next couple of years to be able to help with pandemic supports that can include things like technology, can include things like professional development and more support. And then at the public education department too, where we've invested in our statewide learning management system, other kinds of professional development opportunities that can help give more ideas and ways to manage through this. But I do certainly appreciate the sentiment of this question, and that it has been a major lift on the part of teachers, and I can't express more gratitude for the fact that even in all these challenging circumstances, teachers are doing it. Teachers are making it work, whether it's from home virtually or whether it's been in hybrid or the small groups. Teachers have been stepping up to the plate. Gwen, I don't know if you wanted to add anything on that.
Thank you, Secretary. I deeply appreciate how much you're so gracious with teachers and really recognize the entirety of the profession and how much it is. I mean, it's so it can be overwhelming and it's emotional, and just thank you. I would say to everyone that I try to keep it myself in a place of constantly reflecting on what is the exact work that you're going through. And I do that by reaching out to my best friends who are teachers and my mom. So my mom is a teacher and she is confronting this having to deal with technology in a way that she never has before, right? She's an older veteran teacher, and so she's really struggling, and I just ground myself and try to support her in a very real way, and really think about what's practical. So I think the one thing that I would say is be gracious with yourself and know that less is definitely more in all of this, right? That it's not that the expectation upon yourself and your students right now is not necessarily about, it shouldn't look at all what it looked like before, and just experiencing and or connecting with your students right now is the most important piece of all of this. So
thank you for that response. And I just wanted to share that Dr. Warneman also has a graduating senior in her household. And I lived through 4 of those. And it is hard. It is hard on the graduating senior. I shared with her that in 2015, when my baby graduated, that was the year that Governor Martinez decided, and Scandera, they changed the graduation requirements like twice during the year and then they applied it to the kids that were going to graduate. It was just so stressful for the student. Like, I saw my daughter and the stress that she went through. So yeah, it's just, it's hard on our students too. It really is. And I know you've seen that with just the demands in this virtual setting too, that we're putting on kids, and the crazy things that I think is we don't all see what everybody else is having them do, that sometimes it just is crazy the amount of work that we give kids too. So I don't know. I thought I wanted to share that. So, so this next question is one that really bothers me. And this one comes from Santa Fe also. And I'm seeing a lot of this, and I really think that this is the opposite of what we need to be doing right now. But the question is, our district eliminated 15 teaching and staff positions that were vacancies at the start of the school year, and just reduced, they had a reduction in force of 27 nutrition workers because of budget constraints due to loss in federal reimbursement monies for lunch distribution. Does the state or PED have monies to send to districts to prevent further layoffs from happening?
So I think one of the biggest things I would say to this on that the money question is through the and I forget the acronym. We're calling it CARISA, but the Coronavirus Relief Response and something that starts with an F, something or starts with an A. Through that new act that was just passed, that provides a significant of funds for school districts. So of the money, about $400 million is going to go directly out to school districts for a wide range of uses, including maintaining salaries, keeping people employed. So I think there is going to certainly be a pot of money that districts have that can help offset some of these costs. Now, what is also very explicit in is that those monies go directly to LEAs, and the LEAs decide on their use. That's not something that PED has the ability to direct. So I think that there is certainly a conversation to be had at the local level around where the priorities are, uses, how districts are going to make those decisions about what gets in service of exactly this question, and we know other priorities with regard to navigating through the pandemic. So the short answer is yes. I think there's a lot more money that's coming into it, and the other part of it is we don't control the vast majority of it.
Thank you. Okay, I know we're getting close to the end here. So this was a suggestion that we got, like if we were able to waive the tests, it would add instructional days, which would make all the legislators happy. So, you know, can we waive testing and use these days for instruction? And I think you addressed that at the beginning. And yeah, it's this question about our educators, parents, community rejected attempts to mandate extended learning. Your options for our students in our district. Is the PED in support of the legislation requiring mandated, you know, the mandated extended learning time or K5 plus?
So the executive recommendation for the budget just came out. So I'd certainly encourage everyone to go take a look at the education section. I think we've got a lot of really exciting initiatives and programs in there, and how we can, even during this pandemic, it calls for an increase in budget. Both the legislature and the executive call for an increase in the education budget, which is great. We could not have predicted that. We would have fought for flat just even a few months back. So the fact that we're able to have an executive recommendation where we're increasing funding for education is really good. In terms of the executive rec, we do not have in our recommendation the mandatory extension of K5 plus and extended learning. What we do have are a couple of things in regard to those programs. So one of them is we're proposing taking the existing appropriations for K5 plus and extended learning time and combining them together along with CTE programs and community school programs. We know that not all of the funding for K5 and extended learning time has been spent in these last couple of years. So it basically leaves a big chunk of money, which is reverted to the reform fund for use in a future year. And so what we'd like to see is any of that leftover money schools can use to stack a K5 plus program or an extended learning time program with more funding for community schools and with more funding for CTE. And we think that will really unlock a lot more funding for those really important programs. In addition to that, our proposal has looked at the reform fund, which we project will be over about $150 million when all is said and done at the end of this fiscal year, going into next. And we've said that we would like to start a new index called the Family Income Index. And the Family Income Index would be a method to get additional funding to the schools that serve the highest number of our lowest income students in the state. So really in line with our equity agenda, and that could be used for things like extending the school year. It also could be used for things like family resource centers, and it could be used for things like additional counseling supports and social workers, things that we know that schools who have a disproportionate number of low-income students really need. So, so we have a proposal to put that as a new funding mechanism into the funding formula. We also have another part of our recommendation to provide more money for our tribal communities in line with the tribal remedy framework, and so that we'd be able to put significantly more resources behind recruiting more Native American teachers, developing more Indigenous language programs, curriculum development, and other priorities that are laid out there. A behavioral health landscape analysis is part of that recommendation, so that we can have a strong baseline on which we prioritize more funding in behavioral health. And I'm forgetting something big, and I can't remember what it is, but more funding for digital devices and technology. So that's the executive recommendation with regard to K5 plus extended learning and the reform fund. It's going to be an ongoing conversation throughout the session about where we wind up landing. And I know that there is a lot of interest on the part of some legislators to do a more mandatory extension of the school year.
Thank you for that answer. So And I think the question in the chat is just can they use money from the reform fund to hire back staff? But I think some of this new money from the federal government could be used to hire back staff, correct? I mean, the question really is, they're trying to problem solve to get some of the staff back that have been riffed. So how does that work? Do you know about using the reform fund? I think will probably be more targeted, but there is going to be more federal money coming, more than likely. So
Yeah, the reform fund is one time. It's one-time money. Well, the federal funds are one-time money as well, but they have a longer use period. The newest funds can be used for the next 2.5 years. I think, but a lot of the federal money does flow, like I said earlier, directly to the local level, and is at the purview of local boards. So a lot of that decision making really does take place outside of the purview of the public education department when it comes to how some of those employment matters work.
okay, so I think we are right getting to time, and I know you have probably been in front of your computer screen all day long and into the evening. So we just really want to thank you for joining us this evening, and we appreciate your partnership, and we're going to keep it real for you. And I'm hoping that everybody will make sure that all employees, whether they're members or not, will encourage folks to take that survey so that we can get this information to the secretary and to the governor. And so we want to thank you very much for joining us, Dr. Warneman and Dr. Stewart. And thank you, presidents, for sticking with us this evening, and hope you have a great rest of your week. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate you. Bye. Good night.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Mary, for the invitation.
Thanks. Bye.
Good night, everybody. I hope we can see each other in person soon. Have a great 3-day weekend.
Okay,
Thank you.
Have a great weekend,
Thank
everyone.
you for all
Bye.
the information.
Bye,
Bye.
Billy.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
doing this. Thank you for all the information.
Good night. Thank you.